Behind the peaceful beauty of Italy lies the tragic story of a young girl. Since childhood, Veronica Panarello has faced many difficulties in family and life. The constant conflicts between her and her parents, along with the heavy financial pressure, had a profound impact on her psychology. Veronica's life turns a new page when she meets David Styel, but unexpectedly it leads to tragedy. Let's explore the tragic story of Veronica and the cruel death of her son Loris. Veronica Panarello is a young girl who grew up in Italy, a country famous for its natural beauty and long history. However, Veronica's life since childhood was not easy. Born into a family with many conflicts and lack of stability, she had to face many mental difficulties. Her childhood experiences have shaped her strong yet rebellious personality. Growing up in a stressful environment had a profound impact on Veronica's psychology, making her always feel a lack of support and security in her life. Veronica's life turned a new page when she met David Styel at a bar when she was 16 years old. David, 4 years older than Veronica, attracted her with his charm and adventurous lifestyle. Their relationship quickly developed, and after just 3 months, Veronica was pregnant. Their lives changed completely when their first son, Loris, was born in 2006. At this time, Veronica was just 18 years old, and David was 21 years old. Not long after that, their small family welcomed a new member, their second son named Diego. Getting married and having children at such a young age posed many challenges for Veronica and David. They have to learn how to be parents while they themselves are still growing up. However, love and responsibility help them overcome initial difficulties to build a home for their children. Although they love their children and strive to be good parents, Veronica and David's family life is not easy. They face many difficulties, especially financially. David works as a long-distance truck driver, often having to leave home, leaving Veronica alone to take care of her 2 young children. David's modest income was only enough to cover the family's basic expenses, forcing them to rely on financial support from relatives. The relationship between Veronica and her parents also faces many conflicts. Veronica's parents did not agree with their daughter getting married and having children so early. They always thought that she was not mature enough to take on the role of a wife and mother. Criticism and scolding from her parents made Veronica feel isolated and lacking support. She must face these conflicts alone, while David cannot be by her side to provide support. Conflicts with parents are not only mental but also financial. The young family had to rely heavily on financial support from relatives, which added to the tension between Veronica and her parents. Financial shortages forced them to live frugally, and conflicts about how to manage money and family responsibilities also become more tense. Veronica Panarello, a young woman, soon had to shoulder the great responsibilities of taking care of her family. With a strong yet rebellious personality, she tried her best to maintain a stable and happy family life. After marrying David Styel, she quickly became the family's breadwinner when David had to often work far away. David is a long-haul truck driver whose job requires him to be away from home for many days at a time. This puts most of the responsibility for child care and housekeeping on Veronica's shoulders. She has to do everything from taking care of her 2 young children, Loris and Diego, to managing the housework, cooking, cleaning, and making sure everything in the family runs smoothly. A busy life with 2 young children is not easy. Loris, the first son, needs special attention in his education and development. Meanwhile, Diego, the second son, is still young and needs constant care. Veronica has to stay up late and wake up early, worrying about every meal, her children's sleep, and even Loris's studies. Her patience and love for her children are undeniable, but the pressure and stress from this role also makes her feel tired and stressed many times. The Styel family lives in Santa Croce, a peaceful small town on the island of Sicily. With a population of only about 10,000 people, local residents all know each other. Veronica and David's family is no exception. Life in this small town seems peaceful, but underneath the surface are hidden conflicts and tensions that not everyone knows about. Local residents know the Styels as a young family, with Veronica as the devoted mother and David as the father who is often away from home due to work. However, not everyone understands the difficulties that Veronica faces. Although she tries her best to take care of her family, she still faces constant conflicts from her parents. Veronica's parents do not agree with their daughter getting married and having children so early. They always thought that she was not mature enough to take on the role of a wife and mother. Criticism and scolding from her parents made Veronica feel isolated and lacking support. She must face these conflicts alone, while David cannot be by her side to provide support. Conflicts with parents are not only mental but also financial. The young family had to rely heavily on financial support from relatives, which added to the tension between Veronica and her parents. While financial shortages forced them to live frugally, and conflicts about how to manage money and family responsibilities also become more tense. Meanwhile, local residents also have different opinions about Veronica. Some people sympathized and understood the difficulties she faced, while others criticized and judged her. There are no shortage of rumors in this small town, and Veronica must face social pressures from many sides. These conflicts and tensions not only affect Veronica's psychology, but also family relationships. She felt isolated, lacking support from her parents and those around her. This may have contributed to increased stress and pressure in her daily life, leading to poor actions and decisions. Veronica's daily life is full of challenges and pressures. Although she tried her best to be a good mother, financial shortages and family conflicts greatly affected her psychology. Constant conflicts with her parents leave her feeling isolated and lacking support. The stress and fatigue from taking care of children and managing housework further increased the burden on her shoulders. Veronica's psychology is deeply influenced by her past and present experiences. Family conflicts and financial pressure made her feel insecure and lacking freedom. Dependence on financial support from relatives further increases feelings of helplessness and control. These factors may have led to her impulsive and uncontrollable actions during times of crisis. November 29, 2014 was a fateful day for the Panarello family. On this day, the small town of Santa Croce on the island of Sicily was shaken by a horrific murder. Loris, an 8-year-old boy, went missing and his body was later found in a tragic condition. The first person to discover Loris's body was an elderly hunter. He often hunts around forest areas near towns and abandoned factories. That morning, while scanning the surrounding areas in search of prey, he accidentally came across a horrifying scene. At the bottom of a shallow ditch, he discovered a strange object partially hidden by leaves and bushes. When he got closer, he realized it was not trash but the body of a child. The scene where Loris's body was found shook investigators and local residents. The boy's body was mutilated and lying in a shallow ditch near an abandoned factory, just a few minutes' drive from the Panarello family home. Loris's body was twisted unnaturally, the boy's clothes were in disarray, and his pants were pulled down a bit while his underwear was completely absent. Police and forensic experts quickly arrived at the scene to conduct an investigation. Marks on Loris's body led investigators to suspect a sexual motive, as the boy's underwear was missing and his pants were pulled down. However, there were no clear signs that Loris was sexually abused. Forensic experts discovered that the boy's cause of death was strangulation with a thin foreign object wrapped tightly around his neck. Examination of the scene also did not detect DNA traces or fingerprints of the suspect. This fact makes the case even more mysterious and difficult to solve. The police were faced with a difficult situation when there were not many clear clues to determine the identity of the perpetrator. The investigation into the Loris case has mobilized the participation of both local police and the Carabinieri force, an elite unit of the Italian police. The main investigators in this case are highly experienced and skilled, tasked with finding the truth and bringing the perpetrator to justice. Local police quickly secured the scene and began collecting initial evidence. They are faced with a chaotic and complex scene with few clear clues. Carabinieri forces from Rome were also dispatched to Santa Croce to support the investigation, bringing modern equipment and technology to analyze the evidence. The investigation process was meticulous and thorough. Investigators conducted a series of operations to uncover the truth behind Laura's death. Investigators collected all possible evidence from the scene where Laura's body was found. They took many photos of the scene, collected samples such as soil, leaves, and surrounding objects. Even the smallest traces are analyzed in the forensic laboratory. Forensic investigators also performed a detailed autopsy to determine the cause of death and any clues about the suspect. Veronica Panarello and David Styel, Laura's parents, were the first to be questioned. Both expressed sadness and shock at their son's death. Veronica recalls that morning she took Loris to school as usual. However, no one at the school saw Loris that day. Investigators also questioned Loris' other relatives, including grandparents and family friends. These interrogations seek any information that might help shed light on the case. Some of Loris's relatives provided suspicious information about Veronica's relationships with several other men in town, but investigators found no concrete evidence. The police also checked surveillance cameras around the abandoned factory area and the routes that Veronica often passed. Footage from these surveillance cameras was scrutinized to look for any trace of Loris or a suspicious stranger. However, there is no video recording of Loris on the day he disappeared. Data from Veronica's cell phone was also examined to determine her location at key times. Her calls and text messages on the day Loris went missing were also analyzed for clues. Psychologists were invited to participate in the investigation to paint a psychological portrait of the suspect. They analyzed the behavior of Veronica and those around her to find the motive and ability to commit the crime. Experts found that Veronica had complex psychological manifestations, with many internal conflicts and tensions in daily life. Veronica Panarello, Laura's mother, quickly became the prime suspect in this case due to her actions and conflicting statements. From the beginning, Veronica appeared panicked and distressed when reporting her son's disappearance, but investigators soon noticed many irregularities in her story. Veronica testified that she took Loris to school as usual on the morning of November 29, 2014, and then took her younger son to kindergarten. However, no one at the school saw Loris that day, which contradicts her testimony. Surveillance cameras did not record Loris when he allegedly entered the school. Instead, the footage shows that Veronica took an unusual route, approaching the church where Loris' body was later found. When the police brought Veronica back to the scene where Loris's body was found, she had strange and unnatural reactions. Instead of showing sadness, she acted coldly and seemingly without emotions. The police conducted a thorough search of the Panarello family's home. They searched for any clues that might be related to Loris's death, from personal items to strange marks. In the process, they discovered signs that Veronica may have lied about some important details. Veronica undergoes many interviews with the police. Initially, she continued to assert her innocence and knew nothing about her son's disappearance. However, under the pressure of evidence and constant questioning, she began to change her testimony several times. Veronica has given many different versions of the events that occurred the day Loris went missing. One of her new statements claimed that Loris had strangled herself with a plastic tie she had previously purchased for a school experiment. She also admitted that she panicked and decided to hide her son's body to avoid being charged. Inconsistencies in Veronica's testimony and behavior made the police even more suspicious of her involvement in Loris' death. Investigators believe she may have caused her son's death and then tried to cover up the crime. David Styel, Loris's father, was in Rome on business at the time his son went missing. When he received a call from the police about his missing son, David was extremely shocked and worried. David quickly contacted Veronica after hearing the news. During a phone conversation, Veronica confirmed that Loris was missing and that she could not find her. This made David even more worried and decided to return home immediately. David quit all work in Rome and boarded the first flight back to Santa Croce. When he arrives home, he faces the heartbreaking truth about his son's death and the confusion of what happened. At first, David couldn't believe that his wife could be involved in Loris' death. He always viewed Veronica as a loving and devoted mother to her children. However, her contradictory behavior and statements made him begin to have doubts. As evidence from the police and Veronica's conflicting statements are presented, David begins to feel that something is not right. He recalls his wife's confusing moments and strange behavior in the days before Loris' disappearance. Veronica's statements about how she took Loris to school, but no one had seen him, increased David's suspicions. The suspicion that Veronica may be involved in Loris's death causes a great psychological shock to David. He feels torn between his love and faith in his wife and the truth that is clear from the evidence. His emotions fluctuate between grief, anger, and despair as he realizes that the mother of his children may have caused Loris's death. David worked closely with the police during the investigation, providing all necessary information and assisting in finding the truth. His pain and loss comes not only from losing his beloved son, but also from having to face the possibility that the wife he once trusted could be the villain. Investigators conducted a meticulous investigation and discovered many strange details in Veronica Panarello's behavior and statements. Inconsistencies in her story and unusual behavior attracted the attention of investigators. Veronica constantly changed her testimony and was unable to give a unified story about what happened the day Loris disappeared. She even changed her usual route, driving closer to the church where Loris's body was found, although she claimed she had dropped Loris off at school. Veronica testified that she took Loris to school, but no one at the school saw him that day. Surveillance camera footage also did not record Loris entering the school, raising further doubts about her testimony. When brought back to the scene where Loris's body was found, Veronica did not have a natural reaction of grief but was instead cold and seemingly lacking in emotion. She also had strange reactions when questioned about the incident. Investigators used modern technology to analyze evidence related to the case. Surveillance cameras and GPS data played a key role in determining the truth. Footage from surveillance cameras around the abandoned factory area and the routes Veronica often takes were carefully reviewed. These videos show that Veronica changed her route and did not take Loris to school as she claimed. Instead, she drove close to the church where Loris' body was later found. Data from Veronica's cell phone and car were also examined to determine her location at key times. This data clearly shows that on that fateful morning, Veronica followed an unusual route and approached the abandoned factory site. These findings provided crucial evidence to investigators, helping them determine that Veronica may have lied about what happened the day Loris disappeared. With new evidence from surveillance camera analysis and GPS data, investigators had enough basis to arrest Veronica Panarello. Veronica was arrested on December 2, 2014, just days after Loris' body was found. The police arrested her at home and took her to the station for further questioning. She was charged with murder with clear evidence against her. Evidence from surveillance cameras and GPS data showed that Veronica lied about her route the day Loris went missing. Furthermore, her conflicting statements and strange behavior created a clear picture of her involvement in her son's death. Veronica Panarello's trial began in July 2015 at the Santa Croce Courthouse. This is one of the largest and most interesting cases in the town's history. Throughout the trial, Veronica was repeatedly questioned about what happened the day Loris disappeared. Prosecution attorneys presented key evidence and questioned Veronica about inconsistencies in her testimony. The trial lasted many months, with many different hearings and interrogations. Forensic experts, witnesses, and Veronica's family were also called in to provide information and clarify details related to the case. Veronica has given many different versions of what happened the day Loris went missing. Initially, she claimed that Loris had strangled himself with a plastic tie. She later changed her story and said she took Loris to school. These conflicting testimonies increased doubts about the veracity of her story. After Veronica's arrest and trial, the lives of the Panarello family and the Santa Croce community changed completely. Veronica was convicted and sentenced to a long prison term. She became a symbol of betrayal and crime in the eyes of the community. Her life in prison was difficult, and she faced judgment from both within and without. David Styel, Loris's father, was deeply traumatized by this case. He lost his beloved son and had to face the fact that his wife may have caused his death. David tries to live for his younger son, Diego, and focuses on raising him. However, the pain of loss and doubt still haunt him. David and Diego continue their lives without Veronica's presence. David devoted himself to raising Diego, trying to make up for the loss of Loris. They seek support from family and friends to get through this difficult time. And now click through our playlist to see more heartbreaking cases. Thank you for subscribing to our channel.